Hey everyone. You're probably wondering why I'm holding this Tempest Shadow plush. Well, like with any plushes or figures or what have you, this plush was an exclusive that you can only get one place. You see, at my job, you could get exclusively the Rainbow Dash Pirate Airship, the Pirate Pony Collection, which is basically a duplicate, or it was duplicated by Kohl's for their Cutie Mark Collection one, which has Tempest Shadow. Just like the Wonderbolts and the Power Ponies were Target exclusives, and the one I want to get now, the Magic of Every Pony, is a Target exclusive. This was an exclusive as well. An exclusive, as you can see right there, of Toys R Us. Even Walgreens has exclusives. But the reason I'm holding this Toys R Us exclusive is because, as many of you know, as I do, it was announced that this week, and by most accounts, next week and in the following weeks, Toys R Us is going to be shutting its doors for good. Well, I wouldn't be saying shutting their doors for good. I'd be saying more along the lines, it's more along the lines of an indefinite shutting. And usually what indefinite means is unknown. Basically, Toys R Us is closing a majority of their stores, if not all of them. Not just here in the US, but in other countries. They are liquidating all their assets, all their products. Ponies, Transformers, you name it. They're liquidating them all. So what you would normally get here for, let's say, $14.99, you're probably going to be able to get for about $5. The Sequestria Cantalot playset, which probably by now you can get for about $40, you can probably get about for $15. Yeah. That's basically the reality. I think I've only been to the Modesto Toys R Us just once. But I have, throughout my life as a kid and so forth, been to Toys R Us. I've been to the Toys R Us in Topeka, Kansas, because there was one there. There was never one that I know of in Lawrence, Kansas, which was a shame, because if we had a Toys R Us in Lawrence, Kansas, then you'd be damn iffy that I'd be there at most times that I could be. But we never had one there. The Toys R Us's that I knew about were, of course, Modesto's. There was, of course, Hayward's. There was, of course, Fremont's. Any of the Bay Area cities and some of the Central Valley cities that I lived around or in all had a Toys R Us. Even Tracy, California had a Toys R Us. And it's a shame to know that Toys R Us is no longer going to be around. Well, at least for an indefinite amount of time, Toys R Us is not going to be around. The reason I say that is because sometimes when you read certain articles, some of the words they put out there is could and maybe, or could or may. What that necessarily means is not all the stores are going to close, but a majority of them are. It's kind of like with Blockbuster. Blockbuster Video closed up. Even the one in Patterson closed up when they went out of business. However, there are very few blockbusters still in existence. And these are blockbuster videos that are owned by people, families, franchised by people to this day. They still carry the blockbuster name. They still have movies and games coming in for rental and sale. There you go. However, a majority of the blockbusters, besides a few, like I said, are currently no more. The same with Circuit City. However, Circuit City seems to be making a comeback very slowly. Which is why when I hear about Toys R Us going out of business or liquidating all their assets for the time, I don't think it's a permanent closure. I mean, yes, it is sad that probably the last vestige of my childhood, of anybody's childhood, is shutting its doors for the time being. It is sad. It's like a part of your childhood is being taken away. But I look at it this way. If Toys R Us is able to still get things like this licensed exclusively to them, then I don't think Toys R Us is going to be gone forever. You have to understand the wording too. Toys R Us is liquidating all their assets in the stores, filing for bankruptcy, stuff like that. However, as far as I know, their online sales, their online sites have not been mentioned. Which means ToysRUs.com could still be up and running. Now, is it going to be the same as being physically in a Toys R Us store? Absolutely not. But one of the things people blame about the closure of something like Toys R Us is e-commerce, is basically online shopping, is the online stores, online retail, e-commerce, if you will. That's one of the things they blame. They also blame some of the investors that invested into Toys R Us back in the mid-2000s and some of the decisions that they made. And there's no doubt that those investors probably can take a majority of the blame, but so can the fact that in today's day and age, a thing like Toys R Us, a physical store like that, is not necessary anymore. Because all you have to do is go to a place like Amazon and you pretty much have access to a lot of toys there. You can go to a place like Hixar, HEXIR.com, and you have access to a lot of stuff there. There's a ton of online toy stores. Now all you have to do is Google them, either search them on Google or Bing or whatever your search engine is, and you'll pretty much find what you need. You pretty much have that hole that Toys R Us used to feel being filled up once again, because now you have another outlet. But when I hear people saying that Toys R Us is going to be no more, I don't think that's the case. I think, in all honesty, Toys R Us is still going to be around. Like I said, one of the things that they blame is the online retail, the e-commerce. Well, it's ironic that people blame Toys R Us's physical store demise on online retail and e-commerce when Toys R Us itself has an online website that you can shop and order stuff from. And you can either pick up at the store, like people can order stuff at my job and pick them up in store the same day or within 2 days, or you can have it shipped to your home. it it doesn't make any real sense as to why you're angry about something that, yes, does take part of the blame in the demise of the physical in-store experience of a place like Toys R Us, but yet Toys R Us takes part in that. Which again brings me back, and maybe someone can correct me here, which brings me back to the fact that we haven't heard anything about the online site. You know, is the ToysRUs.com going to go down, or is ToysRUs.com going to be around? You know, we don't know. I mean, people would assume that if Toys R Us is filing for bankruptcy and is going into liquidation, is going to basically liquefy all their assets and discount a lot of the products, even the newer ones, that basically Toys R Us's website would be affected too. But I can't really say. I mean, I can understand the stores, because stores cost a lot more to run at times, especially across not just this country but across other parts of the world. I can understand that takes a lot of money to invest into and to run, compared to doing an online site. But even if the website itself will be affected, again, as sad as it is to hear that Toys R Us is, for the time being, unless some miraculous miracle happens in the next week or so, that Toys R Us is going to be gone for a while, and that whatever buildings that the Toys R Us's are located in your city or your town, you're going to wonder, okay, what's going to fill that place up? What business is going to take over? Because that's the mystery. That's the mystery. Nobody knows. But again, when you look at it, a lot of people, even the news reports from, like, here in the Central Valley, like KCRA and News 10 and CBS 13 and Fox 8, they're all reporting the same thing, that Toys R Us is pretty much done for, or at least for the time being, out of the picture. But I don't think it will be. I think Toys R Us, honestly, is one of those businesses that for a time is going to shut its doors. It's kind of like people not doing much with their YouTube channels, or the Daily Motion channels, or the Vimeo channels, or what have you, or the Twitch channels or something. Just because they're not doing much doesn't mean they're done. The channel is still up and operational, but just because they haven't put out a lot of content doesn't mean they're done putting out content. It just means they're taking a hiatus, they're taking a break. And I look at this whole situation with Toys R Us as being very similar to that. I see Toys R Us basically being in that same vein of, they're just temporarily going on hiatus. And that when the time is right, it's going to be announced that Toys R Us will be coming back. And I look at it this way. It's kind of like when you compare it to wrestling. A lot of people say that when Anthem Sports bought TNA and rebranded it as Impact, in the end rebranded it as Impact, that even though the TNA words were still associated in some form of fashion, when Anthem came on board, basically the doors were shut forever on the TNA chapter, and they were reopened or re-grand opened in a new light, with a new ownership, with new people behind it, with a new look. It's like the same, basically it's the same company, the same branding, the same atmosphere that you felt before, but it's got a new look. And basically its new look emphasizes that it's starting a new chapter, that it's starting a new beginning. It's beginning all over again. It's starting almost from scratch, even though it doesn't feel like it. It's like a soft reset, a soft reboot. It's like one part of it is gone for good, or has its doors closed for good, but now it's that, and because of that, it's gone through basically a soft reset that's allowed it to reopen the doors to a whole new world, to a whole new life, in a sense. Similar but different, basically a new beginning. And that's how I look at a company like Toys R Us. I mean, I mentioned earlier not Sears, but Circuit City seemed to be making a comeback, last I heard one time. But they're starting out small. It's not, they're not going grand and big like they did in the past. They're going to start out small, and then maybe if some of these smaller, soft, rebooted, rebranded Circuit City stores succeed, then maybe they can start planning on expanding and occupying bigger atmospheres, bigger buildings and stuff like that. And that's what I see Toys R Us going through. I really do. I think Toys R Us is going to go through a similar situation to where right now they're going to close their doors temporarily, and then within maybe another couple months, 6 months, year, whatever, you're going to probably start hearing about Toys R Us coming back, but maybe going in the same direction that Circuit City's going in, and that's starting out small, like in small areas, like small little stores and stuff. In some of the major cities or even the small towns, to see if people will still want to have a Toys R Us around. That's what I feel is going to happen, because I'll give you a good example. At my job, there are 4, I believe. Let's see, Metro, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. There are 4 phone stores. Okay? There are 4 phone stores. And what's funny is you wouldn't expect someone like AT&T or T-Mobile or whatever to come and plop the business down in our area, into that area, but they did. And that's basically how I see something like, and that's basically what I see when I hear about Circuit City trying to bounce back about a year, several years later after going out of business. They're starting out small. They're basically doing what AT&T and T-Mobile and all of them do in these smaller towns. Even though they could have bigger businesses and bigger buildings and all that, they're starting out small in these smaller towns, so that they could see exactly to see if maybe they can get, to see if maybe they can get an audience in that area. I'm trying to find the proper word. That's probably the best word I can come up with. And like I said, that's kind of like what Circuit City's doing. People still remember Circuit City, but what Circuit City's doing is they're starting out small. So let's say for example, we have a place where Papa Murphy's used to be. It's no longer there in Patterson. Circuit City, the people behind the rebranding, the soft reset, the new beginning of Circuit City, could take a place like where that Papa Murphy's was and say, we'll put a Circuit City there, and test the grounds in that area to see if maybe people still want a Circuit City in the Central Valley. They could choose a place like that in a town like Patterson, California, to say, hey, maybe people want a Circuit City again. Let's see if people around the Central Valley area, starting here in this town of Patterson, California, want a Circuit City. And if they were to do something like that, and people would show the support for it, then that would give encouragement for the people behind the rebranding of Circuit City that's doing this to go to areas like Modesto, Sacramento, Turlock, Stockton, and start trying to branch out again there, and maybe even try to expand into bigger buildings to try to get back into that more familiar state that Circuit City was in before they went down. And I say that, and I say that about Toys R Us doing the same thing because I could see them doing that. I don't see Toys R Us being gone forever. I see Toys R Us basically saying, we're taking a temporary leave of absence, we're going on a hiatus, but when we come back, it's going to be like a soft reset, a soft reboot, and just like before, and just like in the past, we're going to start from scratch. We're going to start small and then try to build from there. So, is it, like I said, is it sad that Toys R Us as of right now seems to be going away? Yes. Is the online portion going away with them? Unsure of. We are unsure of that. Physical store wise, yes, it is sad. Online wise, I can't really say. But I will say this. If I'm Hasbro, I'm Mattel, if I'm Hasbro, I'm Mattel, I'm Hot Wheels, if I'm any of these major toy manufacturers that depend on a place like Toys R Us to support us, to get our products out there, then this is what I do. I come together this week or within the next few months and try to get Toys R Us back on their feet so they could start that rebranding, that reset that they need to get things back to the way they were, or at least start small and start gradually building back up. Because honestly, I don't see any of these Toys R Us stores really shutting the doors permanently. I just see them temporarily shutting down until the right time comes to reopen. That's what I see. Because I guarantee you, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to do what I did after Blockbuster went out in Patterson. They're going to go around, they're going to film, they're going to look in the stores, they're going to see a lot of empty areas, or heck, they might even see some products still there that is yet to be sold, but can't be accessed because they got to close the store down temporarily, if not indefinitely. But again, I don't see Toys R Us going away forever. I think in the end, and I know I sound like I'm repeating myself, so I do apologize, I think in the end they're going to follow in the footsteps of what Circuit City's doing, and they're going to softly reset themselves. They're going to go through a soft reset and reboot, and instead of starting out in a big building like they're established to right now, they'll probably start out small and then gradually build from there. But we'll just have to see what happens. It's all in God's hands, and only He knows what's going to happen. But yeah, and again, I do have fond memories of going to Toys R Us because it was the only mega toy store for kids and adults. One thing that Rodimus Primal said, though I think that's his name, is Toys R Us started to incorporate a lot of non-toy items like baby stuff, like car seats and stuff. Not to correct him, but Toys R Us started to do that long before, I think even recently, even before the Babies R Us or Kids R Us that they opened up. They started to do that long ago. Even when I was still like a kid, I started noticing that. Heck, when I was a teenager and I would go into Toys R Us, I started to notice at times that they weren't just doing, car seats and all that, and bikes and all that, which was pretty much an establishment anyway since the beginning, but they were also doing electronics. They were doing phones. They were doing movies. Movies, I think, were more common at times and more acceptable, but like phones and all that, that's kind of what kind of got people a little bit. It's like those aren't really toys. Those are like electronics, accessories, whatever. So yeah, Toys R Us was a majority of it was toys, but most of it was, but there was parts of it that started to change to be non-toy related, if you catch my drift. So but yeah, it is sad to hear that they're potentially going to go out of business, but I look at the positive, and I look at the fact that I don't think it's going to be forever. I think it's more of an indefinite leave of absence, an indefinite hiatus, and they're going to come back, and that sooner or later, they're going to come back and basically go with a soft reset and reboot and go from there. And I think they're going to, like I said, they're going to follow the footsteps of Circuit City and other businesses that we thought were going to be gone for good. They're going to start out in small areas, small buildings, or small spaces, if you catch my drift. So, but yeah, is it sad to see him go? Absolutely. Is e-commerce partially to blame? In a sense. Are the investors mostly to blame? In a sense. But like I said, if you take a look in Google online, you'll probably find a lot of toy areas, online toy stores and stuff that will fill the void until Toys R Us, in my opinion, makes a comeback, and it will. So, that's all really I'm going to say about it. Yes, it is sad to hear that they're going to go out of business for the time, or at least shut their doors indefinitely until the time is right to reopen them. So, but yeah, it is sad, and it is kind of an end of an era, but I don't think so. I don't think it's totally the end just yet. So let me know what you guys think, though, and that's basically it for this video and me sharing my memories of Toys R Us and talking about the decision that's been made to have Toys R Us shut its doors for the time being, maybe mostly on an indefinite hiatus. But again, I don't think it's going to be forever, and I think they're going to reset themselves and start out small. I really do. So, and restart small, kind of reboot and reset, and start out small, if you know what I'm mean. Basically in smaller areas, smaller buildings and stuff. More community, more like economical, if you will. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say, folks. So let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like, and I'll talk to y'all later.